Welcome everyone to another episode of the Spiritual Sisterhood. Today we have with me my best friend Simone Mody, and I'm really excited for her to be on here. So, for those of you that don't know her, Simone is an overachiever, and we're so lucky to have her with us sharing some insights. So we were in college together and we were presidents of the same fitness fest called Elysium, after which we also went to London together. And I was in King's while Simone did a dual degree at LSE and also USC, which is in LA. So as you can see, she's already, doing multiple things, having two degrees in two different colleges from the top institutes in media. And after that, she's come back to India and she's now the digital marketing manager at Asta Guru Auction House, which is one of the best in the country. So we are super lucky to have Simone, who dons so many different hats. And we're going to hear Spiritual Sisterhood. We're going to hear her take on health and wellness and just how she feels about being such a multi-dimensional person. So thanks, Simone, for being here with us.
Thanks for the praise. It was like quite overwhelming just to listen to everything combined into 1 second. But thanks for having me. I'm really excited to be here. So,
Yeah, and I think that the best part is that we know each other so well. So most of these answers I already know what she's gonna say, but it's really good because you get to have an insight into the way she thinks, and things that are important to both of us. So I think the spiritual sisterhood is something that I would say we embody as people who've been best friends for what it's been like 5 or 6 years now. So these are just things we want to share with you so you also get a perspective into how we think and what's important to us. So we're going to start with question number one, which is, what does the word sisterhood mean to you? And also, like, how do you think that it has shaped who you are today?
interesting. So, okay, let's go with part one of your question. So, what does sisterhood mean to me? So, I think it basically means like a collective of like females who support each other, and then so it used to mean that to me, and now it also means to an extent males who are very supportive of
Yeah.
these females,
Mm.
and who are like, I don't know, feminists, I guess,
Yeah.
if you want to call it that, but just people who are ready to support the feminine gender
Mm.
in a more collective way and a more inclusive way.
Yeah.
And so, what does it mean to me? It means that, and how has it helped me? So, it's helped me in so many ways that I can't even begin to describe. It started helping me before I even knew the word sisterhood. When your teachers would help you as a girl student, sometimes when you needed a little more direction, when you needed a pad, or when you needed someone to explain what a period is to you and your mom wasn't around,
Yeah.
something like that. And it goes on to now when I have a female boss. Right now she's the head of the marketing in my company, and
Mm.
every time something like like obviously there's bound to be disagreements in a working environment,
Mm.
and every time there's a fault, even if it's supposing it's my fault, like something hasn't been executed, she
Mm.
will stand up and take the blame from the higher authority,
Mm.
and then afterwards she'll come and explain to me why what I did was wrong and why I need to correct it. And then
Mm.
that overall protection and not throwing other people under the bus whenever you
Yeah.
need it, that is what like sisterhood means to me. That's what I have gained from it, is that okay, you stand up for it again, like in front of other people, but then you go back and correct it and talk within each other. So that
Mm.
collective of just supporting you on the front, on the
Yeah.
facade, that's what sisterhood really embodies. Like that's when I see it in play, and it's in very subtle ways. I don't think people are even thinking of it all the time. It's not like,
Yeah.
oh, because she's the girl I need to protect her. But I've seen that it happens more with women. I've seen that
Yeah.
it happens more when uh, a woman stands up for a girl. Like I have tend to notice it that it happens more with the female gender than it does with the male gender. So
Yeah.
maybe that is a sisterhood playing up into play. So
Yeah.
yeah, so that's how I've benefited from it my
Yeah.
whole life in different levels. I've always had a lot of female authority around me. So, and there's always that sort of, oh, you're doing this, let me help you, and
Yeah.
in a very subtle way. So I
Mm.
think that's how I have benefited, and I'm sure you know what I'm talking about, especially when we were in college. Like we
Yeah,
had
I know
Pooja
what you're
ma'am, we
talking about.
had like you
Yeah.
and I were like there. Then we had mostly female leaders in that space.
Yeah.
So it
Hmm.
was always like, oh wait, let me help you, and then we can talk about this later, but right now let me help you.
Yeah, let me take care of you, and like you're fine now. No, I
Yeah.
think that's such a good point, because seeing feminine authority in that way from an early stage has really shaped us, because we've learned to take up room. We haven't been scared to be like, oh, I can be in charge. And I think sometimes that's what happens with a lot of women, is that they might feel curtailed in certain situations if they're not given the
Yeah.
freedom to do that. And I think to all women watching, definitely take space, be a leader. You don't have to even, it's not even about like putting anybody else down, like Simone said, it's just about expressing yourself and being there to champion your other women so that you can all collectively do well together. So I think equating sort of sisterhood with leadership and this feminine collective is a really nice way to put it. And like Simone said, we've experienced it in college so much. Like I don't know, we didn't even have too much of an experience with the male collective while we were in college. We just were a lot of women running the show. So we had a really good experience sort of backing each other and supporting one another. So yeah, 100%. Cool. And now my question is a little more on like spirituality and yoga. And we have kind of, we were part of the same yoga club. We created a yoga fest. So sort of what does the practice of yoga mean to you, and what like drew you towards it the most?
So, what drew me towards it was very superficial, actually. It was when I was in school. I had taken physical education as my, so ICSE has this thing of 6 subject or 7 subject. I don't know. They keep changing the name, but I had taken physical education as my 7th subject because I had already taken maths and science. I just wanted something light.
Yeah.
And part of the physical education was yoga. And at that time I was just like happy to do anything that was not studies, because I was like, overwhelmed with science and math and all these other big subjects which were very theory heavy. So I was just happy to do something that would just be relaxing. And so physical education was sports and yoga for us in our school. And so that's what drew me into it. So that's where I started it. We would start with 5 minutes of meditation, then padmasana, and very very basic poses. We do like shavasana, vrikshasana, things like that. And then after that, the more I started doing it, the more that became one of the things I was looking forward to every week. I was like, oh, we have like a double period of PT where I can do 1 period of yoga. It's going to be so great. We can just relax. And that's when I realized I'm really getting drawn towards this subject. And in our school also, unlike many other schools actually, there is a focus on the asanas, but we're also told about the theory. And because that's again part of our curriculum, right? So they tell us about like all these things from the founding of yoga and the structures and stuff like that. It's not very in depth, it's very basic, because there's a lot we have to go into in that subject. But even at that time I was very surprised, because I always thought, oh, yoga is more about your external body, and it's not so much about the internal mental health. And that's when I started learning that there's so much more to this. And I was very interested in it. And then 10th standard came and it ended.
It's like it came and it went.
So that's when I was like, oh, okay, that's fine. So apart from that, I didn't do that much in those mid-tiers. So in my 11th and 12th, I didn't do much. Then Anvita came into my life, and she brought sync. And and that's when I started again getting into it, because I'd always been interested in it. It just sat in the back of my mind for 2 years, and then it came back to the forefront. And that's when we started doing yoga again. And like now, I don't think I can do a day without like, a yoga session for myself, like half an hour, 45 minutes. It's mostly self-guided. I don't really do anything else. That's because we've done so much over the years. I know enough to take myself through one session of yoga a day. And it's great, like it takes me to these places where I'm just able to calm myself down. And so do you remember Miss Sanjana used to take our classes in years? And I remember she always said this one thing that stuck with me. So when you're doing yoga, no matter what thought you have, let it play like a radio in the background of your mind. You can just concentrate on yourself, and all those thoughts are just far away, like as a distant little thing. And I've always managed to somehow I've been capable of separating it. I know some people didn't, but I've been able to separate it, and it always gives me so much peace. I'm like, okay, that's just something in the background right now. I'm just focusing on myself, and that gives me so much peace and quiet in the moment, and I'm able to later focus my energies better on those thoughts when I
Yeah.
have to finally work on it.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's something I just love. Yeah, I mean, I don't know what better way to put it than to say that because I practice it daily, I know that it's keeping me tethered a little bit.
Yeah.
So yeah,
Mm.
that's
That's so cool. And also, like, there was a point in the third year when Simone and I taught, remember, we went to those schools where we used to teach yoga. So I think when she said, that it's self-guided and she's able to take herself through it, I think that's the beauty of yoga. Once you practice it enough, you don't even need to like do a teacher training as such, because it's like any subject, it just starts coming naturally to you. And like Simone said, some of us are really able to step away from our thoughts and take that moment and be like, oh, okay, this is different. It's just playing. I don't have to focus on it.
yeah,
So, and I think when you really start realizing how yoga feels and how it impacts your mental health, you do feel like, hey, I need this every day.
yeah.
Everyone wants
Addiction. You
yeah,
need your daily dose
good
of,
addiction.
yeah, a good addiction,
Yeah.
but yeah,
Yeah, I
yeah,
think that, anybody watching, I hope that you also are able to feel those magical moments in yoga, because if you only do it on the surface, like, hey, let me stretch my leg or let me just do a split, it might feel a little mechanical. So I hope that what we're speaking about becomes real for you and you actually experience those tiny moments of like feeling centered and really understanding what yoga is. And then I think no one will even have to tell you to go on the mat, you'll go on your own.
yeah.
So that's one of the things that really you should take away from this interview. Cool. And no, and I really remember when we used to teach in that school. So I'm going to go a little off topic now. In that school, it was really funny because the kids were really small. So I don't know if they understood also what we were trying to teach them.
Yeah.
And they were quite unruly, so it was really hard to control them with yoga. So this is another question that came up with, in another interview also, that how do you feel like we can introduce yoga at, say, the educational level? And the good thing is we all had it as optional subjects. So I think that's good because we're not forcing anybody or telling anyone that you have to do it. But a lot of schools don't have it even at the optional level.
Right.
So, how do you think, A, we should introduce it, and B, even after introducing it, how do we handle the children that, are just not able to adapt to it? So just what are your thoughts around yoga and the education space?
Right. So I mean, like, let me just start with my school because then I can broaden my
Yeah.
thought process.
Hmm.
But I think that it makes sense to actually introduce it at a very young age,
Hmm.
because if at a young age that's when you're the most malleable, you're
Yeah.
more available to listening, and you're literally being shaped at that point. So if at that young age I tell you that, okay, whatever it is you want to run around and play and do whatever you want to do, that's fine, but for these next like 20 minutes you need to calm down, close your eyes and sit. Yeah,
Yeah.
if you do, then the children are accustomed to
Hmm.
doing that, like when they're told to calm down, or when they require that, that sort of like break from all their hyperactivity especially, then they will slow down.
Hmm.
And it becomes a habit of knowing when to take that break.
Hmm.
And I think that's something that Indian culture doesn't know how to do, is take a break. Everyone is always overworking from the
Yeah.
time you're born to the time you die. You're
Yeah.
just overworking and
What's
pushing
the next
yourself.
thing? What's the next thing? Yeah.
Yeah.
Especially in the 10th to 12th, like everyone just, it's,
No, 10th to 12th. After 12th comes TY. After TY comes job. After job comes death. Like, I mean, no, we don't take a break.
I know what you're
So
saying. Yeah.
it's just,
We don't have a work life. I know what you're saying, because even when we were in London, there was a much better work life balance concept and people demanded it. It was their birthright. Here we're like, give us more work so we can prove ourselves.
yeah,
So, like,
exactly. And there's this consistent need, I mean, to prove yourself at work, to prove yourself to everybody. And that, like, you don't realize, but it's always taking like a mental, it's putting a mental load on you.
yeah.
And it's a lot.
Mm.
So if we're told from that very young age that you need to know how to take a break, you need to know
Mm.
how to set aside everything you want to do, run around and play when you're
Yeah.
5, and then work when you're 50, and just take a 20-minute break, that makes a
Yeah.
difference. But you can't,
Mm.
it's difficult to introduce it when you're older. It's probably much easier to do it when you're younger.
Mm.
So yeah, my suggestion, if we were to introduce it into schools, would be to introduce it at a like at a much lower level, maybe at
Mm.
like the, what is it called, lower kg.
Yeah, low kg, higher kg. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So
Yeah.
introduce it at that level where you're able to tell a child, or even at the age of 6 when they're in the first grade, where you're able to tell a child, okay, whatever it is for the next 20 minutes, you need to close your eyes,
Yeah.
put your thoughts in the background like a radio, and just like focus on yourself, focus only on your breathing. And
Mm.
I think that'll make a big difference, because over time they will realize that they look forward to that break, they need that
Right.
break. And
Yeah.
it's not wrong to have it either.
Hmm.
Like, you don't
Yeah, that's
have
so
to live
true.
your entire life, you can just take a break, it's
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah.
So I
Mm.
think that would be the way I would see it. So
Mm.
in our school, like I said, we did have PE from first to 10th as well, but it was like, okay, close your eyes for 5 minutes while the teachers talk. So, you know,
So yeah, it's not a break because I can hear. Yeah, it's like now
exactly.
silent.
And it was just like, it was their way of shutting us up. We knew that.
Yeah.
And if we didn't shut up, or if we opened our eyes in those 5 minutes, they would not let us play.
Yeah.
And so everybody was all tensed about
Mm.
not getting to play, listening to the teachers talk. So I mean, the concept that was right, but the way they were doing it was wrong. It was like a
Right.
punishment. Like, you will
Mm.
be made to do yoga for the rest of the day. So it was a punishment that you
Yeah.
had to do.
Yeah.
It was
Instead of
not
it being actually in a reward format, almost like not
as
even reward, but just like a feel good factor rather than yeah.
exactly. So just the method, the way they were going about it was not the best.
Yeah.
It was just like, for the sake of making you close your eyes, you were made to close your eyes and breathe
Yeah.
for 5 minutes. But it was best. So I think the approach also, that if a school is doing it, the approach also needs to be in the format of, oh, we
Mm.
want to encourage you all to
Yeah.
relax, not, oh, we'll punish you if you don't, if you
Yeah,
don't.
that's so apt, I know. And like you said, if you put it in a child's mind in that way at an early age, they'll look at it as a punishment later too, like, oh, if I did something bad, then I need to relax, or or it's as if it's something that's negative. And I think one thing that my school did, which also made me like it at a younger age, was we used to act it out a lot. So we would do like, if you're a tree pose, when you're in tree pose, how would you act like a tree? So like there was acting in it. So
Yeah.
that I think made it a little fun for us, because we always looked forward to it. Like, dude, 1 hour we're gonna act and be like a tree and a lion and this and that butterfly. So I think, like you said, the approach really matters, and I think the way that a school chooses to teach it and be creative about it, I think will like impact the students' minds a lot. And then they'll say that, wow, I'm so used to this that even when I'm 20, 25, 30, I just, like you said, it's just a part of my life. It's not, I don't need to be like, oh, now I will take a yoga class and it'll become a part of me. So yeah. Although I think that there's a long time to go for that, because it's
Yeah, definitely.
definitely
No, but the
challenging.
reason I'm even saying this is because that new educational policy that came out
Yeah,
maybe like last year, it's
yeah,
August,
last year.
September. It was really progressive and very interesting.
Hmm.
So it would be, I mean, when I saw that, it didn't feel that far away
Yeah,
as a thing. Like,
right.
maybe
From
they
a
would
thinking, yeah, I know what you're saying. From
exactly,
a
like,
ideological standpoint.
exactly, because they were talking about, like, students choosing these kind of subjects and the arts over math, which
Yeah.
was great. Like,
Yeah. I mean,
like
in our time, it was like, what? Like, it would not be, you would not consider it in school. So,
it's so refreshing. Like,
yeah.
uh, I wish I could go through school again, because that sounds like a fun plan. So,
Yeah.
that,
Yeah, true. No, yeah, I think I know what you're saying. I think ideologically, we're definitely moving in the right direction. And I think in terms of implementation, we'll have to see, like, which parts of India can implement it when. But yeah, like you said, I
but that's
think,
also the good thing about yoga, is that the actual structure of yoga doesn't require you to have a fancy mat or a
yeah.
fancy yoga block. You can
Yeah.
do it, because it just requires you to be able to have something to lay down
Yeah.
on,
Yeah.
and then just do it in your comfy
Exactly.
clothes. You don't
Mm.
need anything else. Like, there's a lot of that Western, I don't know whether it's called
Hmm.
appropriation, but
Yeah.
the Western takeover of, oh, you need to be wearing like $500 leggings or whatever.
Yeah. Yeah.
You need to have like this really fancy ass mat
Yeah.
and stuff like that. Which is,
Yeah.
like, that's
Like
not
certain ornaments that have been just put onto yoga, which we don't really need.
But
Like,
you
I
can,
feel like, and the best part is people can just do it in Indian clothes. I mean, I know a lot of schools like where, women wear salwar kameez, and you can do it in that. So I feel like we don't need to, like you said, change anything. We just probably need a towel or something, and then you can start doing
you just need something to lay down on. So
it.
it's not such an equipment heavy thing. It's not like badminton where you require a net, you require the
Yeah,
badminton racket, you
correct.
require a shuttlecock, you require the space. You
Yeah,
don't need any of that. You just
yeah,
need something to lay down on and someone to come and impart that knowledge. That's it.
yeah,
So
yeah.
it makes it much more.
Easy to do. Yeah,
Because
yeah.
you're not dependent on other equipment. You don't have to worry about how many students will get the racket or how many won't.
Yeah.
So these are
Yeah.
problems that a school of 250 per bag has. So I like
Like, who is gonna use the badminton bat today?
so
That's crazy. Yeah, no, that's really funny. And I think that one good thing is, like moving into our college years, that we were able to kind of have Sync and Elysium to sort of facilitate that environment in college. And now, like as ex-president of Sync, I want to ask you, that it was obviously challenging in our initial years when we were trying to get Elysium to go about. But what do you see was the most massive impact that it left on college students? Because again, in Elysium or even in Sync, there were a lot of people who had never done yoga before, and this was like maybe their first introduction to it. So what do you think like a fest like Elysium or these kind of initiatives in college do for college students at that age?
I think it opens your mind to the possibility of like the possibility of things being more than just. So most of the fests in our college, just for background to anybody who's watching this, is that a lot of them are business fests, a lot of them are cultural fests. In fact, Elysium was Mumbai's first health and wellness fest. I think it may have been India's first health and wellness fest. I'm
Yeah,
not
because I
quite
haven't
sure about
heard that. We
that.
don't hear about anything else like it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so it may have been that.
Yeah.
But at that time, the reason it was so great is because everything else was so business and maybe culture oriented, but it was not mind and wellness oriented or body and health oriented. So, you would have things like dance and all, which come close to, I guess, health.
Yeah.
But apart from that, nothing that was yoga specific or exercises or anything else that Elysium offers, healthy cooking,
Yeah.
all that kind of stuff. And we had panelists coming in, nutritionists coming to give talks, stuff like that, which is very, very insightful. And it makes you think about all these things from a younger age. So, before you hit that, what they call whatever the midlife crisis when you get to like 35-ish, that's
Yeah.
when people normally start to realize that, oh, they need to take care of their body, they need to take care of their health, they need to go to maybe a wellness mental health practitioner to get themselves heard or whatever, just to sort out these problems because it's all been bottled up for 35 years.
Yeah.
But if at 17 and 18 you're seeing that, oh, nutrition is a really important part, because we had a nutritionist coming in, you have access to a nutritionist, they're telling you that yes, you should be eating slightly better at this age right now, because otherwise you're going to have problems later. Or you're speaking to a wellness health mental health person, and they're telling you, yes, it's important for you to take a break, like you may be having a lot of energy but you need to slow down.
Yeah.
And when you hear all of that at that age, that opens your mind to the fact that, oh my god, this is not just an old person problem, or this is not a problem for me.
Yeah, I can't deal with it later.
Exactly, it's a problem to me now, I need to do something about it now. And I think that makes a lasting impact on the students, because a lot of them were very appreciative of the fact that they were able to interact with such kind of people at that kind of platform,
Yeah.
which is something that hasn't happened before.
Right.
And that makes such a big difference, in my opinion. So I think that was a big impact that we gave, is that people sort of had an eye opener over there that, oh, this matters to me now. It doesn't just matter to me when I'm 35 or 50 or whatever. It matters now.
Yeah.
And so that, then the other thing that I felt was really great about Elysium was the fact that we were able to get so many like-minded people who had these kind of thoughts but didn't know exactly how to pour them out or how to access it. So they all came together, and they were able to do that, and it formed like its own sort of collective in college. Like, so that was another great thing.
Yeah.
And also, like you've always said, Sync had always been like this cultivating talent kind of a thing. So like You have so many like
Yeah.
dance workshops, Zumba,
Yeah.
and other things like I keep forgetting.
Boxing. Remember those
Yeah,
kickboxing we
yeah,
had?
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly. And so, it's over there that people would learn a little bit of dance. They would get interested in dance and then move on to actual dance, maybe join choice
Yeah.
eventually. So
Correct.
it's like a cultivation of talent there and then. So you had the space. So choice would be in our college where all the professional dancers would go. So
Yeah.
it's either you don't
Already
dance,
trained.
yeah,
Yeah.
or you're already trained and you go up there. There's no in between.
Yeah.
So sync was like that in between where you're interested in dance but you've never done it before, so you
Yeah.
learn a little bit, you
Yeah.
get good at it, and then you can move to the professional space.
Right.
So that's another thing that I think
Hmm.
must have helped college as well, because it's like it's like a talent sort of building.
Yeah,
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 yeah, which I think is so important. I'm really glad you brought that up because we really wanted to focus on just having like a learning platter, because there were a lot of people who were just, like you said, interested, but
yeah.
there was no avenue only in college that would service them. So we kind of gave this platform where, hey, you love Zumba, come, let's do Zumba for like 2 hours, So it was really fun. And that cultivated the interest in a lot of people to then take the leap and say, oh, I'm really interested in this and let me go forward.
Yeah,
So,
yeah.
yeah, I think we were able to give people that
Yeah,
to this a little.
exactly. I think it was really fun.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah,
and
we loved it. We would be there at like, remember those 7 in the morning, the
my
initial.
God.
And okay, so for people watching, it wasn't like all roses and petals, okay, in the beginning, because we needed people, right? We were a new club. So I would, the day before, like a workshop, be like, okay, you have to come and, you have to be there. And I remember I've even gone to the extent of calling up some members of the club, being like, listen, at 6 a.m., get up, you have to come at 7 a.m. So like Akshan and all, I've
Yeah,
actually done this. So
I
it
know.
was not all easy, that we're now it sounds easy because it became that over time. But in the initial days, there was some resistance because it's a new idea, So it took time for people to adopt it and to get used to it.
And not only that, so the other thing is we would only get that 7-ish slot because we were a new club. So everybody else had, like already taken out the great slots. So we would get like stuck with this super early slot. Then we'd have classes at 9, so we couldn't have it after.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, we just didn't have a choice.
it's so
And
difficult.
we had to, it was really funny because we didn't even have the space exactly to do it. So we did it in this one room where it's actually a conference room. So we would come there, move away all the chairs, invite the teacher to come teach, have some students come in, and then we would put it all back and then go to class, So there was a lot of drive from our end to really make this happen, which is why I did. But yeah, just so anybody starting something new, you might even be a teacher who has a new class coming up. It's normal, in the initial days for it to not be that crowded, but it picks up. If you stay consistent and you're providing good service, it does pick up. So don't worry about that.
And you have to be consistent. I mean, no one's gone from zero to hero in like
Yeah.
a day without actual effort. So even if you see
Yeah.
those stories, they probably worked for like 10 years before they actually got noticed. So,
Yeah,
don't expect
exactly.
your thing to be an overnight thing because
Yeah, yeah.
you've
And
never
just I
started.
think, yeah, like Simone is saying, we don't see it. We just see their fame, so we don't realize. But everything takes time, and there are these moments that kind of build you for consistency even later on. So just keep going and keep providing value, and you'll get there if that's what you're doing at the moment. Cool. So that was a little bit about our Sync and Elysium journey, which was really fun. We look back at it even now and we're just like, we only have smiles because it was such a
Such a
fun
great
and
time. Yeah.
crazy time of college. And the fest still exists. So we sometimes go back and we just, we're so happy that it's still there and people are still making
Oh,
it.
and the fun thing is that this year my sister was invited to give a class because since she's a
Exactly.
professional ballerina.
Yeah.
And I recently saw a post on the Elysium saying that Jezreen's going to teach. And I was just, so it took me like full circle. Like, oh, we founded this fest. Now they're inviting my sister to come and teach. And it was just so
Exactly.
crazy. Like,
Yeah, it was so, it's literally like Simone said, it comes full circle because we would never imagine that, no, that a couple years down the line, the club would last enough to then invite Simone's sister to teach. So it was very surreal. And even I shared it. I was like, oh my God, Jason was teaching. This is crazy. Like, and even my brother's in the club. So it's crazy that it has lasted enough for our siblings also to kind of be there and join these activities. So it's pretty cool. It's pretty cool. So now we're gonna like dive a little bit more into who Simone is and what makes her who she is. So,
How do I answer these questions?
So for those of you that don't know, Simone is quite a multi-dimensional person, and one thing she always stands by is not being put into a box, because she really likes to express like all different parts of herself. And I think that's the beauty of yoga as well. It always talks about integration and having different interests, expressing yourself. It never restricts you. It always helps you to expand. So I think Simone is a good embodiment and a good example of that. So I wanted to ask her, I already know this, but has it been like difficult for you to kind of embrace so many different parts of yourself when in a world where people are constantly saying, no, you need to specialize, you need to define yourself? So has it been challenging? And then has yoga like helped you to maybe embrace these multidimensional qualities that you have?
So, okay, first off the bat, no, it's not been that challenging. But the reason that it's not that challenging is because I genuinely don't care a lot. So, like, it's a good quality to have in certain levels. Maybe I overdo it.
Yeah.
But one thing about me is that I don't care that much about what other people think of me. This has been a thing, and I don't know if it was a yoga principle.
Yeah.
But what I mean is, like, I don't know if it was a personal yoga principle that I was using in my life. But like since a very young age, I've just been like, oh, I don't need to tolerate anything that doesn't sit well with me, and or anything that doesn't fit my vibe. That's probably a better way of putting it right now.
Yeah.
But so I have never, I don't like to sugarcoat things. I don't like to unnecessarily beat around the bush.
Yeah.
So, and that is one aspect that makes me very capable of just doing what I want to do, because I don't care. I have the freedom to do what I want to do, because if you say something to me, it doesn't bother me.
Yeah. It actually doesn't. I can vouch for this. Yeah.
Yeah. So I mean, personally, I think that's why just to answer that question, no, it's not been that hard to do that. But yeah, I think yoga does help because it keeps on teaching you to be true to yourself. It keeps on telling you to vibe higher, right? So when you're vibing higher, you can't tolerate people who are, pulling you down. You will not tolerate somebody who's either being rude to you or being insulting or just, overall creating a negative impact on your energy or your focuses. So that in itself is definitely a very strong yoga principle, and maybe I was using it without knowing that it actually is one, but it definitely helps, because when I'm able to see things clearly, when I'm in my meditative state, that's when I get my clarity, right? And when I get my clarity, that's when I know what I want to do. So when I know what I want to do, I'm able to just use that thing of I don't care and push it towards that. So overall, I think it's like a combination of things. Like it's a combination of my personality plus the fact that I like to get clarity on things that I want to do. I'm not a very structured person, so things are happening to me all the time. Like I'm very go with the flow. I don't like to do this, but when I want something, so if I have a goal in mind, that's when I become very aggressive about it, or I'll become like very
dedicated, like you're following that path.
Exactly. So that's when it probably comes into play the most. But overall, there are many things that I like to do, and like Anvita said, like I've had this issue with the boxing, like the table boxing, for the longest time in my life. Long before I could even call it that, I've just been like, oh, but I want to do this, and I also want to do this, and I also want to do this. And my parents have been really supportive of that. They've never told me, oh, you need to call yourself an X thing, or you can only do X when you want to do Y. If you want to do this, you can't do Y as well. And so they have been really supportive of that. They've always told me, just go and do what you want to do. It doesn't matter, just do what you want to do. Be happy, always be happy. And I think that's another reason why I'm able to just ignore what other people say, because I get a lot of that support from them and they matter to me. So
Yeah.
as long as I'm getting support from the people I actually care about, I don't care what the others think. So
Yeah.
yeah, so when it comes to singing, I used to take a ton of singing classes because I was very interested in singing at one point in my life,
Yeah.
and I still am. It's still a very important part of me, but it's not something that goes on public display. It's just something that I do for myself because it makes me happy. Then there's a lot of dancing. I would say that I'm okay at dancing. I'm not the best. I'm not the worst. But when it comes to dancing, I would always do it. Like if I am at a dance party, I'm at a club, wherever I am, I will.
Yeah.
So
When
I
there's
don't
good
really
music,
care.
it's like,
Yeah, I don't care what you're thinking. I don't care if some other person thinks that, oh, this is a bit weird, like she's dancing too much. I would, like, Anvita knows this situation. It happens a lot.
I have been
Uh,
in many of these situations because I love dancing. Simone loves dancing. So when there's good music, then we really don't really care. So
yeah, we just don't care. So that's exactly what I mean. So we just go for it. And there's so many other things. I love yoga. That's why it's now an important part of my life. Like Anita said, we've even taught yoga to like young kids when we were in TY. It was part of our social service efforts from Sync.
yeah.
And it was great. So these are so many things that, like, I mean, I don't think any one thing should ever define a person if you don't want it to define. Now, if you want it to define you, that's great and you should go for it. But if you think that you need to be defined by one thing, that's not true. Like because a human being is so much more than a one-dimensional thing. Like if you're one-dimensional, you wouldn't be walking around. You're three-dimensional. Like,
Yeah.
you were made to do more things than one. So you don't have to define yourself or limit yourself to one thing.
Yeah.
And I mean, I think it's always really funny because I think about it when I'm in my profession as well. Like, I'm doing digital marketing, and the number of times I have been asked in my company to help out with something to do with the business plan, to do with
Yeah.
finance, which is not even my strength,
Yeah.
or like, or to do with anything else. Sometimes it's to do with public speaking. Like we have a few internal things that we sort out, and they need to have like sort of public speaking help, etc.
Yeah.
And I do those things as well because public speaking has always it's come very naturally to me since a young age. And again, all these are all the things that make up my personality. So I may have like the tag for the sake of the company for doing this, but there are multi-dimensional things I do within that as well, like in my company, and which are not really tagged. And the same thing. So I don't know, I think it's always come very naturally to me, and I always enjoy different things. When I was young, I would wake up every day and say, oh, I want to be an astronaut who like fights fire in space. And like my parents would be like, yeah, okay, you can do that. And
We can. It's gonna happen.
and I mean, forget the scientific fact that fires can't really happen in space.
Yeah.
But putting that aside, I could be a space fireman if I wanted to.
Yeah.
And that's what I'm trying to say, is that you can be whatever you want to be. You don't have to be defined by your title or a box that somebody else puts you in. Like people are I think it's basic human natures that you always want to like quickly put somebody in a box so that
you can identify them, like
exactly,
tag them.
identify them. It's not particularly meant to maybe it's not meant to harm, but sometimes I think what it does is that it does harm the opposite person, because when they start feeling like they need to carry that tag, that's when they start caring about it, and that's where that don't care comes in. Like I don't care, but like for many people I know that it comes in. So like there's so many people who think that they need to be defined by that one thing that they do. Like an actor needs to be defined only by the fact that they act, not the fact that they, I don't know, cook or something else that they really enjoy doing. So I think that's where I like to. That's where.
That's why you have a multi. I think that's so. I think you explained it really well, because I think people have understood that they really don't have to bother so much with other people's opinions, because at the end of the day, I think it's our life. If we're not happy doing the different things we want to do and we're limited by other people's beliefs, then we'll constantly blame them. So I think what Simone said about not caring, in a way, it is a good thing, because sometimes you do have to put other people's opinions to the side and be like, let me just do what I actually want to do. So while I know like this is her personality as well, so she is, and you don't have to obviously become her personality, but I'm saying that it's so good that it kind of teaches you to respect yourself enough to not be hampered by other people's opinions. And
Yeah.
this is a very important thing. And yoga also talks about it through satya, truth, etc. So I
Yeah.
think overall, to anybody watching, our message would be that just own your truth and don't be scared of if it's different from someone else's, if you've not seen anyone else have this particular combination before, it's okay. You just have to kind of go with it because it's true for you.
Yeah,
So yeah.
exactly. And I think Anvita is also a really good embodiment of it, because I remember she was having this issue earlier where people were like, "Why are you rapping if you're a yoga?"
Oh yeah. Oh my god.
And even at that time, I didn't understand. And I was like, "Why can't she rap? She's just it's yoga and rap. They're completely different. They're not
Yeah.
related."
Yeah.
And like she was just like, "I don't know what to do about this."
Yeah, it was a real problem because a lot of people were like, how can you be so, how can you like this genre of music if you're somebody that's spiritual? And I was just like, I'm not, again, because I'm spiritual, I can own these interests. So have like, I know myself well enough to know I like that. So I never really understood it. But yeah, there was definitely a little bit of backlash on social media with
Yeah.
regards to that. So
Which made no sense to either one of us.
yeah.
Frankly. Like, how does a music choice affect the fact that she's a very peaceful person?
Yeah.
But yeah,
Yeah, and also the fact that I think the whole message of I remember when I was thinking about yoga rap, it was because I was like, oh, I love rap, but some of the lyrics I can't really relate to because it's talking about like drugs or maybe say alcohol abuse or a lifestyle that I don't understand. So I was like, why don't I take this music and like put lyrics that I can relate to over it? So it was kind of more to be more myself.
yeah,
So it was hard to understand when people didn't understand, but I guess the ones that had to did, and the ones that didn't, they can unfollow. So it's fine, I guess.
exactly, big deal.
Yeah.
So it's okay.
So yeah, I think it's just, and sometimes something really cool might come of it. I think like just to add on to what Simone was saying, I had no idea that while creating yoga rap, say MTV might actually find that interesting, and I would be selected for a show. So sometimes you never know how expressing yourself could lead you somewhere else.
Mm.
And if I had curtailed that over there only, I may never have gotten that opportunity. So just like you never know. So just keep being
Yeah.
yourself and don't let anything put you in a box. So yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. Now I think my next question is going to be about, like we spoke about how you have a dual degree, and even in college, we just as a person, you would always push the boundary of what excellence meant to you and try to keep getting better. So like, where does that again mindset come from that you always want to be the best at everything you do? Because there's a lot of people when you're in school and in college who are okay just being average or okay being where they are. So what is it that drives you to keep being better and keep bettering yourself every time?
I think that's a really nice question. It makes my ego.
Yeah.
But I know, flattery aside, I think it comes from the fact that I don't like being called stupid. I don't like being called like idiotic or anything like that. So that always makes me feel like, oh, can I do this in a better way? I always want to be the smartest person around. I always want to be the person who has managed to do this and this and this and this and still do great.
Yeah.
So like I think it comes from that continuous drive of just wanting to be the best.
Yeah.
I don't know, well, I don't know if it's be the best, but
Or
yeah,
your best, like just do your best.
exactly. I'm like, oh, can I do this better? Like until I am satisfied with it, I don't like to put it down.
I have an example here. Do you remember when we had that red kapda or that pole? So when we were in the first year of college, we were doing a fashion show, and there was this one pole of cloth. I don't even know what we needed it for a
Not
sequel.
all wrapped around this one, yeah.
Bamboo or something, yeah. And everyone was like, oh, that's not opening, it's just not opening. They kind of given up on the bamboo opening, and then they just left it aside, and they were like, we'll buy a new one. So Simone was like, no, how can it not open? Like, it's just cloth, why is it not unwrapping? And that it just shows the mindset, we're like, no, how can it not happen? So both of us went, and we kind of were trying to just open that thing. So I think that shows again that you won't let it go if you try to solve the issue, basically.
Yeah. And the thing is, we were also tight on budget constraints because that time I think some senior had lost some of the money,
Oh yeah.
and they were like, "Oh, pay extra for this." extra. I was like, no,
I'm not paying
I'd
anything.
rather just sort of, yeah. And I mean, it was just unwrapping cloth. How could it be that hard? So I mean, it did take a little. It took a little longer. It took more. It took about 15 minutes to do it, but it was done eventually.
Yeah.
And yeah, I think it's just that, like, if you think you can do something, there's like a 99% chance that you can do it.
Yeah.
Like, there's very little actually stopping you from doing what you want to do except for your own mindset. So once you tell yourself, oh, I can do this, it's not that hard, you'll be able to do it. So setting those restrictions, it comes from your end. Like, you know, there will be people who tell you, oh, you can't do this and this thing and this thing. And I mean, even if they do have the right to comment on it, at the end of the day, you should be confident of your own capabilities to be able to actually push yourself and be like, no, I can do that, I know I can do that, that's me. And there may be a chance that you fail, maybe you're wrong, but that doesn't mean you need to get discouraged. That just means that, okay, fine, you've learned another parameter where you maybe now you know this thing, okay, this doesn't work, so maybe on this you go 98% because you know it doesn't. But it still teaches you something. It doesn't mean you should stop doing it.
Yeah, that's a really good point.
It's always been this thing. So when I was in the 10th grade, I did poorly on math as compared to the rest of my subjects. So all the other subjects in the 90s, math was somewhere in the late 70s. And I was fine with it. Like, I didn't get too mad about it or whatever. And all my friends were like, oh, but you missed. So I had missed 90% by, I think, 1 percentage point. I think it was at 89% or something. And I was like, yes, I am sad that I missed 90%. And, you know, like by 1 percentage point, that felt very, like I'm at the door, but I didn't do it. Like, you know, so, but besides that, they were like, oh, aren't you unhappy with your math marks? You worked so hard in math. And I was like, that's exactly it. I couldn't have done a thing more.
Anything more. Right?
Yeah, to make myself better at this. Like, it just doesn't happen from my end. I know that, and I am satisfied with this because this was the best result I had ever gotten in math.
So, and you tried your best.
I did. Like, there was genuinely nothing more I could have done. So when I think about that, I never get angry at myself or upset at myself. It's the best I could do. That's that. Like, my parameters set. Like, I achieved what I thought I could achieve, and I'm okay with it. Like, it never bothered me beyond that point. Like, it would come into play when I thought about that 89% good personality, but then I would come back and be like, what do you think you could have done? Like, and there was so many times I thought I didn't do well in the other subjects because I was focusing so hard on math. And
I have to do that.
Just going, like, I was able to like perform in them, and I was like, I don't know what's happening.
More naturally. No, but I really liked how you said that, you know, you couldn't have done anything more. I think that's the key there, that if you've done everything in your capacity and this is the marker you're getting, then there's no point beating ourselves up and being like, array, because you didn't leave any stone unturned. So
exactly. So that's what makes me feel satisfied by it, right? Like, I know that was it. Like, the next best thing I could have done is probably, I don't even know, like, take a calculus book from the 12th grade. That wouldn't have helped either. So nothing more. It was at that point of saturation when nothing more will actually help. So,
yeah, that's really true. So I think, you know, overall, I think what people, we hope, take away from this segment is that you don't have to allow somebody else to set your bar for you, and you can decide what you want to excel in, how far you want to go in something, and not let other people decide that for you. Especially, I think when we're growing up, sometimes our parents or teachers or like authority figures tend to set that for us. And when we're younger, it's very hard to say that, you know, I have a different opinion. But as we grow up, we can start understanding that what we want versus what the society might want or our caretakers might want might be different. So to be okay with that and, you know, grow from there. So that was our question on sort of achievement. And now the flip side of, you know, achieving that much is also taking care of yourself, because when you work that hard, it's really important to, like we said, take that break. So I know you said that, you know, you do yoga as well to take that time off and get clarity, but are there any other sort of self-care activities that you do that particularly help you to get grounded and in touch with yourself?
So I've recently started doing this thing with skincare for myself. So it's very superficial. It's not like that internal mental health wala care. It's like a very outsidey care. So what I do is, like, I'll wake up in the morning, I'll put my phone away, I don't check it. And then what I do is after washing up and everything, I'll like wash my face for like a nice 5-10 minutes. And then I'll put on like a nice little, like, those face masks that you get.
Yeah.
I'll put on one of those face masks and just relax. Like, I'll literally just lie down
Yeah.
and relax. Then after that, I take off the face mask. I put on some toner. I put on some serum and
Oh, this is a
moisturizer.
full-on like
Yeah,
actual skincare routine.
yeah, it's a whole thing. It's a whole thing, and it makes me feel so good. Like, once I finish that whole process, um, because while I'm doing that, the only thing I'm actually thinking about is, oh, this feels so nice. Like, it feels so refreshing. That's all that's going through my head,
Yeah.
is that my skin feels so great right now, and I feel so calm and cool. Because sometimes I get very, like, I think Anvita knows this. I get very hot very quickly. Like, I keep sweating. That's one of the reasons I never open my hair outside, is because I'm always sweating and I don't like it. So I get hot very quickly. So I like to stay cool.
Yeah.
And so I finished doing everything, and then I'm just like, okay, I'm ready for the day. And that whole, like, that whole process, which takes me around 20-25 minutes,
Yeah.
it makes me feel extremely focused once I'm done, because I did what I wanted to do for my face. I did what I wanted to do for my health.
Yeah.
Then after that, I'll start doing my work. Then I'll take another break. I'll start eating. So one thing that I do, and I think it's a really good thing that I do, is that when I'm doing a certain thing, I only concentrate on that.
Yeah.
So if I'm working, the only thing I'm doing is working. If I'm eating, the only thing I'm doing is eating. So I passionately eat, or I passionately do my skincare. Well, I'm very, very focused on the one thing I want to do. I don't like to meander.
That's also what yoga says, by the way, like, just keep your focus on one thing, because otherwise you have too many stimuli. So I think you're in tandem with that.
Yes. And when I'm doing yoga, the only thing I want to concentrate is myself. That's why those thoughts become that radio, like I mentioned earlier. So it just goes into the background. So I think that's the best thing for me, is that I'm always able to separate each thing that I want to do.
Yeah.
And that helps me keep focused also on the thing when I'm doing it. So for example, if I'm doing work, I just want to do my work. I don't want to hear anything else. I don't want to do anything else. I don't want to think about my skincare routine or my yoga routine when I'm doing my work. All I want to do is my work. I want to finish it. So that's how it is. And I think that's the best way for me to stay, hyper achieve. What is that word? To just go, like to go and achieve my goals is like, okay, just focus on this, and then you can do it. It takes a lot. So I'm able to do this much easier now. But when I was, like, say, in college in TY, there were so many things that were happening to us. You have to learn how
I think we had, like, there was one point, at least I'll tell you about Simone. There was one point where I think she was Elysium president. She was head of marketing in TEDx. We were giving our GRE at around the same time. She was also giving a lot of Indian exams, right? Was it? I don't remember what it was called.
That.
Yeah.
That.
Yeah,
and
that.
Whatever. SP Drat.
Yeah. And then we had other things also. We had college in general. We had to also submit our research projects. So there was like,
and then we had our boards. So, and then we had IELTS.
Yeah.
That's it.
That's it, I think.
Yeah.
So good 10, 11 simultaneous things happening.
And it was a lot. I'll say that. So I think that's actually when I started doing this, because I realized I cannot function the way I function if I'm trying to do my TEDx, I'm trying to create the marketing plan. I cannot at the same time be thinking about my GRE, because then neither is going to actually work out. And that's when I started this whole thing of, okay, when you're doing TEDx, just do it. And then when I'm doing Elysium, you're only thinking about Elysium. So that's how I had done that whole thing. That's when I started doing it, and it really helped me, because otherwise my thoughts are meandering all the time. And I mean, one tip that I can give that helps you do that. So for example, you can't always control your thoughts. So for example, I'm doing something for TEDx. And I get a thought about Elysium, I would just take a note of it somewhere on the side, so that, I remember it later. And I can talk about it later. So I've handled that for the time being. I'll finish everything, then I'll go look at what that idea was, and then deep dive into that. So that's normally what I used to do.
That's a really good point, because you're not shutting down your mind or beating on it for coming up with a different thought, because that actually might be an amazing idea, but you just can't, dive into it right now.
Yeah, exactly. So that's why I just note it down so that later on I can be like, I can look at it with a with a perspective. And yeah. And it may just be a really great idea. I don't know. So, or maybe it could be something like to do with studies, for example. If I was thinking about something at the cat, how to solve a certain sum, maybe I got some idea, I'll write it down and not continue.
Yeah.
So it could be any of those things. But yeah, I mean, just separating your focuses and making sure you're actually working on the one thing that you're saying you're working on at that point in time is really important. I mean, it would probably be better if you went on Vita's route of making the schedule and being like, oh, this time I'm going to
Be
TEDx.
different.
This time I can't do that.
No, I think each to their own. I think this is something we realized, is that different people function better differently. For Simone, it's like she's able to mentally make those decisions. Whereas someone like me, I get decision fatigue, where I'm like, no, I don't want to make so many decisions at the moment, and I need to pre-plan. So I usually plan the day prior, like a rough outline of what
day prior, Anvita, we not week.
Okay. Sometimes it's a week also. Like, for example, I have this book which I usually know what's happening for the week, and then but at least one day prior I know by timing. And it's really important. Otherwise, I'm like, it's like 10 a.m. and I'm like, what am I supposed to be achieving right now? So yeah, I think we're just different in our way of functioning, but it works for both of us. So I guess that you find whether structure, spontaneity, whatever works for you, as long as, like Simone said, when she's in that moment, even she's just with that one thing. Same for me, whether you decide prior or in that moment, whatever you choose eventually should be like firm focus. So that's the main thing, I think.
Yeah, so I think that's what helps me the most. Just to answer your question briefly. Yeah. Focusing on one thing I'm doing.
Yeah. And I think, like Simone said, take some time off also to invest in physical self-care. I think sometimes they're like, hey, this is like, why do I need to do physical self-care? It looks too, like Simone said, it can be taken as superficial, so we might not regard it properly, but it is equally important. Even in yoga, we're not disregarding the body or saying, it's important, it's a part of you. So trying to take care of your mind and your body in sync, I think, is something that we can definitely do. And the skincare routine, I'll see if I can also incorporate. I don't usually
text me, I'll give you like all the I have way too much interest in this now.
Okay, I'm gonna ask you for the list of
skincare routine.
Okay, fine. So that's a little bit on self-care. Now we're coming to like the end half of this interview, and I'm sure you've learned a lot so far, but we're just going to kind of move towards wrapping up. So I just want to ask, like, the next 3 questions are going to be pretty like straightforward and more like 1-line, 2-line answers. So the first question is, like, what is the one cause that you feel most passionately about, or that say that, and I know this is hard because Simone's not someone who actually put in a box, but just, if there's any one thing you want to tell us about that you're most passionate about, that you would like to change in the world, or the kind of change that you would like to bring, what would you say?
It's really hard.
I know.
No, this is really hard.
But anything. I know there's many, but any one thing.
So I think there's one thing which for some reason is very controversial, and I don't see why it needs to be controversial. It's just equality. And I have no idea why it's so controversial with the whole world. But so my mom always tells me, "Oh, Simone, you're a huge egalitarian," and I'm just like, okay, I don't know. I mean, I guess, but I don't understand why it's so hard for people to treat others differently based on so many different things.
Like social,
based on gender, based on caste, based on creed, based on color, based on religion, based
instead
on
of just being a human.
I don't get it, and I think it really bothers me that that equality is such an issue. I think so. That's one thing. If you told me, oh, what would you wish would just become better overnight, I'd be like, just make it an equal place for everybody to live. I don't understand why it's not.
Why it's hard for people to coexist like that.
I do not get it. So I think it's equality. So I mean, it was close. I'm also very concerned about the environment. But I think the equality thing bothers me a little bit more.
Yeah, I think, like with equality, they always say that I think people misunderstand diversity. Like when you have diversity, it doesn't mean that you have to treat people different. It just means you respect that diversity. But still, the ground or basic rule of treating each other well is something that has to stay consistent. So, yeah, 100%.
I don't get it.
Yeah.
Like,
Hopefully, we can,
yeah.
through our actions and through our work, change that over this lifetime. But it's a work in progress. And I think it has to ring a bell in everyone's head, because if some people are being taking equality seriously and the other half is just doing a third thing, it's so hard to then do anything about it. So that's definitely one. And my next question is, if there were, three pieces of advice that you've already given a lot of like different perspectives, but any three things, okay, I'll say it this way. Oprah written a book, called What I Know for Sure. And she kind of just gave like three things or few things that she knew for sure. So if there are three things that you know for sure, what would those three things be?
Interesting. Uh, okay. I've already said this way too many times,
Yeah.
but let me rephrase it to be a little more concise. The more you care about what other people think of you, the more you're going to hold yourself back.
Mm-hmm.
So
Yeah.
you have to, yeah, that that's definitely something. And I didn't learn this the hard way. I learned this the very easy way. I started to suffer, and I was like, "What are you doing?" But
Yeah.
I learned this very easy way because, like
Hmm.
I said, it's very much my personality to be like, "Yeah, I'm not."
I'm
uh,
doing me. Bye.
exactly. So,
Yeah.
uh, but the more you care about what other people think, the more you're just going to hold yourself back. Because at the end of the day, you may think that a lot of people care so much about what you're doing, but they
Yeah.
don't. Like, they will say stuff when they have the chance. They will try to tell you stuff that's mean, try to tell you stuff that's rude. But at the end of the day, they're more bothered
Hmm.
about themselves than they are about you and what you're achieving. The
Right.
only person who cares enough about you is you. So
Hmm.
you need to do what you want to do.
Yeah.
Eventually, everybody's just caught up in their own life. Like,
Right.
no
Yeah.
one cares that much about you.
Hmm. Yeah. So
So,
don't hold yourself back through others.
exactly, especially with their negative thoughts, because I mean, that's completely,
Yeah.
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 So, that's one thing.
Yeah.
The second thing is, I don't know, this is really hard. Like,
I
I
know
don't
this
know.
is really hard. I've seen this happen. So I've seen in a couple of interviews, and I was like, this is so hard. It's good. So I was like, because it makes you think. You know what it does? Like Oprah said in her book too. She's like, an interview asked her this question actually, like, what do you know for sure? And she was like, she didn't have any answer because she was like, I don't even know if I know anything for sure. And then she wrote a book on it. So I think that it's just something that makes you think, and it kind of helps you to get a little clarity. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's a very interesting question.
Yeah.
I want to know what you know for sure. I'm going to ask you that in a second.
Are you
Uh,
gonna flip it on me?
yeah, I'm gonna flip it.
Okay.
Okay, but okay. So the second thing
Yeah.
that I know for sure
Hmm.
is that, honestly, you don't need external validation
Yeah.
99% of the time.
Yeah.
Like, it's great to have it if it's going to be positive towards
Hmm.
you,
Yeah.
but if it's going to be negative, you should disregard it.
Yeah.
Uh, yeah, no, external validation is a big no for me. I
Hmm.
always, the way I validate myself is, am I happy? Like, I already
Yeah.
said this, but yeah.
Yeah.
So, because otherwise, I think it comes down to the same things that you'll keep trying to please. You become a people pleaser where you're trying to
Yeah.
get that validation from, like, I mean, I get it. Like, you should. There are certain people in my life, who I want to hear them say, "Oh,
Yeah.
you're doing a good job,"
So you want to make them
and
proud. Yeah.
exactly. So
Yeah.
I get that, and it's fine. You should, maybe, like, everybody has that core thing. Person's an island living on their own in some corner of the world. You don't need, like, external human support.
Yeah.
So I get that. But if you start caring about, beyond that top 5, top 7 people,
Hmm.
you're going to get into a really, like, dungy place where you're going to keep on trying to be a
Too many.
person
Yeah.
pleaser, a
Yeah.
people pleaser. And no, I don't. No. So
Hmm.
yeah, external validation is a big no.
Hmm.
Okay, the third thing I know for sure. Okay, this is really lame, but the third thing I know for sure is that everybody needs to wear sunscreen. I swear,
Oh my god.
you need to wear sunscreen. Like,
Yeah.
I don't know.
But this is
Everybody,
so funny because I was like, oh, she's going to say something along the same line. She's like, everybody needs to wear sunscreen.
you need to wear sunscreen. Like if you aren't wearing sunscreen, there's the problem. Please put on some sunscreen because you need to protect your skin. So, yeah, I
Yeah. I
every
think those are three good pieces of advice and things you know for sure. I think people can really learn from that. And also, I think Simone's also saying the sunscreen thing because we used to be out and about quite a lot, much earlier in the heat. Oh my God. So then, if you're especially in a tropical country, I think just taking care of your skin matters. Now, though, we're way more indoors. So, I mean, we don't tend to go out that much, but it really does matter. So, yeah. But that brings us to an end of today's interview. It
no,
has
no,
been
no, no,
quite.
no. We're
Oh,
flipping the
oh,
question, Anvita. What are the three things that you know?
I was slightly evading that. Okay.
I know that.
So I think the first thing I'll say is that I think the first thing I'll say is that like love is real, and this sounds very cocky, but like I think I want to say that because we've kind of idealized it, or we've put it into movies so much that we think that it has to be a certain kind of way, or we think that it has to look a certain way. And I think that the feeling or that genuineness is real, and when you really have that care and concern for someone, you'll know how it feels. And I think that is really what makes our world go round. So I would say that love is real. It's romanticized so much because it's genuinely a thing. The second thing I'll say is love languages are real. We have studied this, actually, both of us have studied this because we have different love languages. And after we kind of took that test and we realized, I think it taught us a lot about ourselves and also how to work on our friendship and relationship. Because I think the sooner you learn that somebody speaks love differently from you, you can try to give in their way. Until then, you'll do what you like to receive, and that might not be what someone else likes. So I think that has taught us to be more considerate and know that this matters to someone else. And my third thing, I think, would be that oh, this is a hard question. The third thing would be that I think just so this is personally what I believe. I think that time in I personally believe in rebirth, and I think that each lifetime is limited. So we're here to kind of keep learning lessons, and each relationship or person or thing or event that comes in your life is really there to teach you something or bring out the best in you or show you something that you weren't seeing. So even when it looks like it's really, really bad and it's like, why has this happened to me? It's probably there for you to learn a lesson to move to level 2. If it's like a video game, you need to learn these things for you to move forward. So I personally, when say MTV or things like that happen, where it wasn't really for me, but as I learned a lot, and I learned what's not for me and what I'm more for. So I think that is a very good lesson. So don't get bogged down by things that are happening to you. It's just a video game and you just have to keep going forward. So those are the three things that I know for sure. Simone caught me on that. I was like, oh, time to end the interview.
Yeah, I was like, what is she doing? I just fell off doing it.
Okay. But I hope that was helpful to all of you watching. And I want to say thanks, Simone, once again for coming on. This has been a really long interview, which I'm not surprised because we have two
We
best
talk
friends
like
in the room.
this all the time, guys. But like our normal conversations are this long.
Exactly. We have spent like entire days together. So this is really not surprising for any of us. But we hope that you were able to take away, if you stayed this far, we hope that you were able to take away a lot of, insights from our life. We're not perfect either, but we're just learning and we're sharing what we know so far with all of you. And thank you once again for watching. If you would like to kind of follow Simone, you can follow her on, say, LinkedIn, Instagram. So Simone, if people want to connect with you, even say professionally or for whatever reasons, what's the best way to get in touch with you?
So just LinkedIn, Instagram is good.
Yeah.
I'm Simone Mody, so SIMONE MODY. That's my username on both.
Yeah. And we'll
So
also put it in the description, so you should be able to click and go there.
yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Awesome.
So that is how you can get in touch with her. And you already know our social handles. So please like, comment, and share this video if you found it useful. And we will see you in the next Spiritual Sisterhood episode. Thank you, everyone, once again. And we'll see you soon.